shine the bright light of reason. I'm Larry Elder. Join me tonight at 7 right here on AM 560, The Answer.
I'm an Adam Ant.
I knew that, Goody Two-Shoes.
Yeah.
This is your theme song because you're Goody Two-Shoes.
That's right. Pretty good dig for our 13-year-old producer, Justin.
He would be our technical director, and he's in his 20s.
Okay. And young at heart, our next guest, former U.S. Ambassador to the United States, John Bolton. He joins us to talk a little bit about North Korea and other national security concerns. Ambassador Bolton, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So now that Dennis Rodman's shuttle diplomacy failed, what is it that we should do in response to North Korea's murder of Otto Warmbier and their continued pursuit of nuclearization? Wall Street Journal opined yesterday that at minimum we should impose new sanctions. We should attempt to go after the regime's financiers. That could be one level of escalation.
Well, I'm in favor of all that. I certainly think we should put North Korea back on the list of state sponsors of terrorism. I think that was one of the Bush administration, Secretary of State Rice's worst mistakes, to take them off. But honestly, this tragedy of Otto Warmbier should tell us something bigger about North Korea, and that is its character. Here's a regime that treats its own citizens like prisoners, that kidnaps innocent people, Americans, South Koreans, Japanese, holds them as bargaining chips, treats them in a barbaric fashion, and then lies about it. So when you look at the way they treat Otto Warmbier, a citizen of the most powerful country in the world, they treat him with contempt. They treat us with contempt. They lie about it. Why does anybody think a regime with that kind of character can be trusted on any commitment it makes about its nuclear weapons program? This is one human life at stake. Nuclear weapons, we're talking about tens or hundreds of thousands. And if they're willing to lie here, they're willing to lie on the bigger picture, too. I think the character of the regime is not subject to change. I think increased pressure, whether from us, whether from China. We've tried this for 25 years on the nuclear program and achieved essentially nothing. There is no reason to believe, and the Warmbier tragedy is just the latest piece of evidence, that year 26 of the same approach will make any difference. I think the only diplomatic answer here is to reunify the two Koreas, to end the North Korean threat by ending North Korea. I acknowledge it's a very heavy lift, but we're running out of diplomatic options and time. There's a very broad consensus that the North is close to being able to put a miniaturized nuclear device on a ballistic missile and hit targets in the United States. A lot of speculation they may be close to their sixth underground nuclear test in the next weeks. Don't know about that, but wouldn't be surprising. So as time ticks along here, the North Korean threat grows. We watched for 8 years while Obama did nothing under the guise of so-called strategic patience.
And we're learning this morning that the official news agency, KCNA of North Korea, said that our relevant agencies treat all criminals in accordance with domestic laws and international standards, and Warmbier was not an exception. So they're blaming, accusations of mistreatment on American smear campaign, with South Korea.
Yeah. So, you can continue to advocate increased pressure on North Korea, and I'm not for... I would take advantage of every possibility we have, but I don't think fundamentally it's going to alter the regime's behavior. I think we need to alter the regime.
Well, what about, the U.S. Fitzgerald that was T-boned by that large cargo ship? Was that an accident or was that an attack? I mean, because that ship was there to intercept ballistic missiles, correct, from North Korea?
Yeah, the latest I've seen is people said that the cargo ship, which, by the way, is 4 times bigger than our destroyer, was on autopilot. And look, this is another tragedy. We've lost 7 good men, killed in their sleep, in effect. What a terrible way to wake up and find yourself about to be drowned. But I have to say, we need a Navy investigation of this. This is an American ship of war. Weren't they watching for this huge vessel to come near them? Were they so surprised by it? I don't think we know everything yet. But, American ships aren't supposed to be hit by other ships, and we can't put the responsibility entirely on the other ship without some evidence for it. I'd want to know why we missed this ship coming toward the Fitzgerald.
Switching over to Russia, I don't know if I can take another Megyn Kelly or Oliver Stone interview of Vlad Putin. So please, Ambassador Bolton, tell us how we can minimize Vlad Putin's influence on the international stage and particularly his influence in the Middle East.
Look, Putin is a complete professional. He's been in power in Russia for over 15 years as president, prime minister. In effect, he switched jobs but didn't switch the power. He's trolling these people. He's having fun. He's in his prime. And the reason is he still is not confronted with American or Western strength. Not in the Ukraine, not in his designs on the Baltic republics, not in the Middle East. So he's going to continue to push out until he sees positions of American strength. And I think that's what we expect from the Trump administration. I hope the State Department and the Defense Department wake up to that at some point. But right now, I think Putin still thinks he's got basically a free hand, and he's going to take advantage of it for all it's worth.
Are you concerned about escalation in Syria and perhaps that confrontation with Russia if escalation continues after we downed one of their fighters?
Well, there is a risk of confrontation. I certainly don't mean to minimize it, but I think we've got to look beyond the tactical circumstances on the ground. I think the bigger problem is that we don't have a strategy for what we want to do in that region once ISIS is eliminated. And I think it will be. We will destroy the ISIS caliphate. Now, they're going to escape to somewhere else, unfortunately. The struggle will go on. But in that particular battle, we're going to prevail. What we're doing, though, is still following the Obama administration strategy of aiding the government of Iraq, which is essentially today, sad to say, dominated by Iran. So the defeat of ISIS, the way we've been conducting our campaign, will end primarily by benefiting Iran, by giving them an arc of control that they've sought for a long time from Iran through the government in Baghdad over two-thirds of Iraq, linking up with the Assad regime in Syria and the terrorist group Hezbollah in Lebanon, which sets the foundation for the next conflict in the region between the Iranian largely Shia coalition and the Sunni Arabs. I don't think we want to do that. I don't think we want to help the government of Iraq, which, as I say, is a surrogate of the mullahs in Tehran, increase their control in the region. And yet that's what we're doing by, in effect, allowing Shia militia from southern Iraq to link up with regular forces of the Assad regime and units from Hezbollah and from Lebanon who are active in Syria now. And so that's one of the reasons this is so complicated, and I don't think we've thought it through.
And the bulwark against Iran in the Middle East is the House of Saud, Saudi Arabia. So how does the news this week of the king rewriting the succession to elevate Prince Salman, the 31-year-old, how does that play into our future plans and understanding of the Middle East and that the bipolar nature of Saudi Arabia and Iran in the region?
Well, I don't think we've seen the end of the leadership question in Saudi Arabia. This is very complicated. It's a system that's evolved over 100 years, really, since the Ibn Saud became king of what we now call Saudi Arabia. I think the vision that King Salman and the new crown prince have is something we can all accept. It's a modernizing kind of vision. But I tell you, when you begin to upset the apple cart in a country like Saudi Arabia in this kind of way, and when you continue to push for modernization in ways that the Wahhabi clerics almost certainly feel strongly against, what comes to my mind is the Shah of Iran. And we all thought modernization of Iran was a good thing, pushed it right up until the end. And then the Ayatollah Khomeini took over. So I want to see the modernization succeed, but I'm worried in the absence of enough information to have confidence that this leadership move is broadly accepted. that you could provoke a reaction among the parts of the royal family. And, there are thousands of princes in Saudi Arabia. It's a big royal family that could ally with what they call the Salafists, the clerics, the extremists, to pose a threat to the regime, like we saw against the Shah of Iran in the late 1970s. And see Saudi Arabia under a Sunni extremist religious leadership with control over the oil supply, threatening the other oil-producing monarchies on the Arabian Peninsula, that is something to worry about.
All right. He is former United States Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Ambassador Bolton, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate your insights.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news,